Okay, so without wasting much more time, I want to invite Mr. Lucky Masilela to start with the presentation from Africa. Welcome, sir.
Asante sana mzee, naanza wapi? Kwanza. Now, good afternoon, colleagues. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to talk to you about our journey of Africa. And in between this journey, I will cite some of the activities that have been happening throughout the process of Africa. From the time the concept was built in the minds of some of our pioneers, our fathers, our founders, to the time that we had to put the bid together, then I will talk to some of the marketing activities that were dovetailed into each of those processes. And then I will talk to you on the current status, where we are today, just to get a feel of what we have done, and the number of registrations that we have realized to date. And then I will talk to you about our campaign across the continent to create awareness. Then I will stop there. And when I stop, I will be extending invitations to all regarding that. If we may start on the first slide, second slide, which is the journey of Africa. I don't know who's okay, yes. Behind him, mzee, nyuma moja. Rudia nyuma, mzee.
Press the screen. Press the last presentation.
That one, yes.
Go presentation.
Yes, ndio.
Press the. I'll tell you to press the presentation.
Next to the 200.
Next to the 200. Resume slideshow. I think we've done slideshow.
No, it's not.
It's come up. So the cutting at the top that said resume slideshow. Yeah, that. Resume slideshow.
Kule juu.
Kule juu.
Chini kidogo juu.
Hapo juu ya Africa, hapo hiyo. Resume slideshow hiyo. Issues.
Okay.
Oh, there. The next.
Well, whilst the gentleman is trying to find the PowerPoint mode, the presentation mode, I will talk to where we are. So, our journey of Africa, legally, it started off with the bid that we submitted in 2012, having got the support from the Africa Union Commission. And why the Africa Union Commission bid? It was important because the word Africa is under the custodianship of the Africa Union Commission. And for us to apply for the name Africa, we had to get their endorsement or support. And in that regard, they ran an RFP, which we were successful in it, and resulting in us submitting an application with ICANN to be able to technically do the administration of Africa. And this, we were quite fortunate that not only did we get the support of the Africa Union Commission, we also got a lot of support from the continent. So that activity on its own, going from one country to the next country, can be seen as a marketing exercise because we had to convince the continental leaders the benefit of Africa. And when they gave us those letters of support, it is because they understood the benefit of Africa coming in as a new GTLD. So whichever step you were to think of, there had to be some kind of marketing exercise that was engaged with the rest of the continent. In 2014, in March, we signed the agreement with registry agreement with ICANN in Singapore. And again, there was a lot of marketing activity. To those that were around Singapore, there were celebrations, and we communicated with the rest of the world, telling them that Africa is here. It just needs to go through the pre-delegation state up to the delegation, which was imminent just around the corner. And unfortunately, another marketing exercise which had a negative connotation to it, whereby one of the applicants who did not prevail in the Africa Union Commission RFP nor prevail in the ICANN application decided to approach an independent review panel, which eventually that independent review panel instructed us to suspend all the pre-delegation work, all the pre-contractual work that we are currently engaging in with ICANN. So if you think about that, it then brought in a negative sentiment around Africa. Africa came onto the news for the wrong reason. So it required that we had to come up with a positive line around the story of Africa, not that it is subjected to litigation and being in front of the courts. It's one of those things that was a little bit difficult to navigate, but we were quite emphatic in it that we are not going to lift our foot off the accelerator, and we had to apply the pressure. The matter ended up in the courts in the USA. Again, we had to use that partly as another story. And as this journey continues, we wrote a booklet of the history of Africa. And in this booklet, we were tracing the importance of some of the declarations, your Abuja Declaration, your OR Tambo Declaration, which were seen as a foundation of Africa. So the booklet, I can show you, it's in my bag. It's a nice book to read. And what is the plan for marketing going forth based on that booklet is to expand the story. It's to create that story, make it bigger, make it more relevant today, because the booklet only traces the story of Africa up to the litigation stage when the litigation commences or beginning of the IRP. It doesn't deal with the result where we are today. So marketing becomes very critical throughout the journey that we have traversed in trying to get Africa. We finally prevailed from the preliminary injunction, whereby the courts in the USA in February this year ruled in our favor. And in ruling in our favor, it meant that we could get the delegation happening. And again, convincing ICANN to act as speedily as possible, getting our team ready, and creating awareness across the continent was the thing that we had to do. And then we had to come in and present a launch plan to ICANN, which commenced the entire making available of Africa. We, based on the launch plan, had to segment it into phases. We have a phase that is called your sunrise phase. Then you have another phase called the land rush phase. And you have the last phase, which is general availability. Each of those phases has a different market and required that we deal with these markets differently with a different marketing strategy. During Sunrise, because the names are ring-fenced for trademark holders, it required that we only target those registrars that can be able to deal with the trademarks. And two, these would be registrars that were ICANN accredited. And furthermore, these would be registrars that are TCMH or Trademark Clearinghouse accredited. So you had this multi-stage, where accreditation that you needed to be able to provision the names during sunrise. And we had to then talk to your trademark community to a large extent, your law firms, your IP, and etc. And that was another form of marketing that we engaged in. I think that phase started in April, and it's now behind us. Then we entered into the land rush phase. We split the land rush phase into multiple phases, which ran for 1 week. The only differentiator in the week 1, 2 to 4 was the pricing. Again, we are using this as a leverage to ensure that there is the right attraction and attracting the right registrars to make certain names available. This phase equally had its own successes and required its own marketing, because we're dealing with premium names and certain brands that were very important. And we had to create that awareness on the brand names and the premium names being now available. And then we went into the final phase, which is general availability. This is where we open the market, the names to everybody and across. Just hold on there, sir. We make the names available to all the citizens across the country. That is general availability. General availability started on the 4th of July, 2017. Now, this is interesting. When we talk again, on a different note about .Africa, there is something that reflects very strong to our African heritage and culture or struggle, particularly .Africa, the name itself. When we got the delegation, or when the token was issued by ICANN to us, it was on a Saturday, the 11th of February. And the 11th of February in our calendar is the date when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. So it turns out that on the day that this token is given to us, it is 27 years after his release, or since his release, after he had spent 27 years in jail. And it became something interesting. I said, wow, how do we deal with this thing? And we were thinking of Judge Halbs, the judge who ruled in our favor in the US. We said, you know what? Now that we have jail 27 in Mandela, 27 years later being released, we get the delegation of .Africa. Let's give the Americans a date somewhere in our launch plan. So we said, what is important for the Americans? Independence Day. And that's the 4th of July. This is a gift to the Americans, the 4th of July. So we were glad that it panned out that way, And now, just to share with you the progress today on the numbers, next slide. From April to date, we had 1,003 names in the Sunrise, which is a combination of your normal and premium names, and then we had Land Rush, 128 names. General availability, which ends next week, has 1,739 names. Interesting enough, on the first day of general availability, on the 4th of April, we had at least 1,000 registrations just in one day. So the number that you are seeing is going to, it's impacted hugely by registrations that took place on the 4th of July. So then the general availability in next month continues with a different pricing. We dropped the price significantly. Currently, the price wholesale is $150. So this will be dropping to $18. And you can imagine, and then renewals will be at $12 going forth forever, and until something else changes. But our plan is that we are going to keep the renewal going forth at $12. Now, as we continue now, we're looking at the driving factors around the market, or what one would call the marketing dots. Being the dot Africa, there's probably your marketing dots, I've spoken to the market segmentation, how we are to deal with the markets throughout the phases, but the market now has changed again, so we need to be segmenting the market across the continent, Africa. Now, remember we spoke about the fact that to provision the GTLDs, you needed to be ICANN accredited, you needed to be TMCH accredited. There's quite a bit of requirements, including just the cost of staying accredited. It's a demanding area on its own. So we need to address that area for the continent. How do we deal with the continent against this market challenges of making available .Africa? And for your European registrars or your American registrars, it's a natural thing to be ICANN accredited. It's not a difficult thing, So for them to be ICANN accredited, it's a norm. For us, the registrars across the continent, the number today of ICANN accredited registrars, I think, is between 12 and 15. For a continent of 1.2 billion, it's very little. And over the last day and today, this morning, it was demonstrated the importance of registrars. They are your go-to market. You need as many as possible registrars to be able to grow into the market. Just as an example, in South Africa, we believe that the 1 million is not a miracle. It is because of the registrars behind that 1 million. We have about 450 accredited registrars by us. And of those 450, there is only 3 that are ICANN accredited. And we need to change that figure. You can see that the 450 have made a significant impact on our CO.za, and 3 are making an impact on the GTLDs. But we believe that if you were to open up the space for more, then that would present the market differently. And this is why we came up with the concept of what we call the AF proxy. AF proxy services. Now, the idea is that the AF proxy will be a registrar that will do the heavy lifting. It will be the one that will apply to ICANN to provide that registry services. Then across the continent, all the current registrars can then be part or be resellers for the AF proxy. They do not need to go through the ICANN accreditation. The ICANN accreditation, as an example, it requires one to pay. There is an upfront fee for application, a couple of $1,000, and then you have to pay a quarterly fee. Again, it's it's $6,250 per quarter if you are accredited by ICANN. And regardless of the numbers, even though this month we might see some change in the policies with regard to the waiver. You can apply for a waiver if you are not performing as well in a specific GTLD. But we think the AF proxy is the one that will be doing the heavy lifting and will create the market for .Africa to ensure that a larger segment of our registrars across the continent can participate. This is ideally targeted for the African market. The AF proxy services will not be extended into other markets, but will be just for the African market. I've spoken to the pricing that will be happening going forth, which again, it's one of the things that for me, I have always said from the DNS forum that took place in Nairobi, that we need to discuss pricing. We need to have price harmonization. One name must not cannibalize on the other existing CCTLDs across the continent. We need to ensure that we have a mechanism of addressing this thing. It is not correct that We have one country selling or making a domain name available for $3, $4, up to $7. And then on the other hand, you have another country that is offering a domain name for $400 up to $700. It is not correct. You know, you can see that the disparity, it's so huge. 4 and 700, it's a big disparity. Until we address that issue ourselves in this House, it will not be permeating down to the areas that we need to. Until we make that conscious decision that we have to harmonize that, it will not happen. And remember, you know, the other thing, there is a need for this Pan-African uptake of .Africa, for it to grow, for it to be successful. And it needs to be successful through the uptake by yourselves seated in this room at the price that you can afford. And we're looking at all the AF stars to be the partners in this campaign of growing the .Africa name brand across the continent. We are looking at the Africa Union to be equally another patron in ensuring that this name brand grows to what we would like to see. We're looking at the registrars across the continent. You know, we're looking at Kenya, you know, those 100+ registrars, if they become our resellers, we have 100 and cascading down to 100. We are embarking on a training program to ensure that more of our non-domain can be domained, or non-participating resellers can be transformed or trained to be resellers. And these are some of the things that need to be happening. So when we started this campaign, we then, if you go to the next slide, we then said, let's test the market. Let us understand where we are. We've run a lot of online campaigns. And then finally, we did a LinkedIn campaign. We sent 1,000 messages across the continent, segmenting again, you know, targeting your CEOs, your marketing managers, all what you would consider in a corporate environment, your decision makers, or people that would respond to this LinkedIn, you know, campaign that we ran. And interesting enough, just looking at that picture, you know, the respondents or the conversations that took place were largely outside Africa. And this picture, I'm showing it because I think it needs to change. And South Africa is but one of the African countries. And then we had Nigeria, or first it's Kenya, you know, that involved in the dialogue and the discussions. And these discussions, this dialogue is almost a demonstration of the interest in .Africa. When you start talking about something, you are already talking because there is an interest. Then we had the United Arab Emirates, which was quite interesting to see. Nigeria came the 5th there, United Kingdom. Then we have Unknown, which is a combination of people that didn't disclose their identity, but we think it's either, you know, countries or single persons per country, etc., and then the other. But for us, this picture, you know, it says the conversation needs to grow. It needs to not have United States as the second, but it's a reflection of the current uptake of the domain names. The US is the next highest uptake, the United Kingdom, and probably a little bit of uptake across the continent. We were happy when we saw Dangote join the race, you know, where Dangote.Africa being registered. It is important when you see such big brands across the continent, you know, where use .Africa. It's worrying when you have only your Apple.Africa, your IBM.Africa, but we'd like to see more of African brands coming in, you know, and I think now even Abibu can have Abibu.Africa, you know, it's available for himself, you know. I don't know what you, Sam. Okay.
He's not Abibu, he's Tahigie.
Okay, he can add that, Tahigie.Africa. against the stats that we showed you, these are the countries that appear in the map of the conversations. The darker shaded ones, it's where there's a large concentration of the conversations. You will see that the Far East, or what you would call China, there is no conversation at all, you know, because there are certain regulations regarding entering that market. And it requires for us to have another marketing strategy to enter the Chinese market. We need to either partner with a local registrar or expand the wings of the Registry Africa into that market. I mean, Affiliates has got that right, you know, where you have entered the Chinese market with about 6 of your products, you know, and have seen a lot of growth. A week ago, there was this GD Global Domains conference taking place in China. It was one of the highly attended conferences by far, because China is beginning to be seen as a great player on domain names, even though they tend to skew the market. You know, in the first year, you would see a huge uptake of names, and then the renewals drop significantly, but they will still continue. There is still this big belief of your lucky numbers, you know, lucky names that they would want to keep for themselves and not lose. So the only names that we think will probably find ground and be renewed forever are going to be your lucky numbers, you know, going forth once we enter that market. But this, again, it requires a different strategy. Either we begin to move from zungumza Kiswahili tuanze tuzungumze Kimandarin, you know, to be able to talk to the Chinese. And of course, then the next slide just to show again against the conversations. These are some of we are told some of the words that were mostly used. You know, I was quite amazed, you know, or excited that Masilela does appear there, you know, a few times. So it's one of the names that was used. So starting from the ones in the front to the back are the ones that were used in the chat, in the communication, you know, on this study that we were conducting through. It's a one-month study, as you can see, you know. Next slide, sir. So then starts another interesting thing for me, which is the market awareness. On the 10th of March, we were in Addis Ababa with the outgoing chairperson, where there was the launch of .Africa. Officially being launched, officially they were, you know, hoisting the flag of .Africa in one of the the entrance of the Africa Union buildings. And then again we went back to Ethiopia on the 3rd of July. On the 3rd of July, this became the awareness campaign, the launch of the awareness campaign for .Africa. So it started with the flag being handed from the president of the, or rather, let me put it according to the structure, the Africa Union chairperson, President Alpha Conde, and President Alpha Conde handed the flag to the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission, Musa Faki, and the chairperson of the Africa Union Commission then handed the flag to myself. This is at the 29th Africa Union Heads of State Summit, the 29th Head of State Summit. So it is an important event. It is one of those biggest marketing events for .Africa. We had coverage across the continent on the different TV channels. We had coverage across the world on the different media platforms. So that equally began to be this huge, you know, growth in the marketing campaign. We pulled out some stats to look at the general, you know, movement on across the media, the conversations. You saw that we had plateaued, you know, where we do our, you know, what do you call in the thermometer was mercury was rising, you know. So yeah, the mercury, the information mercury for our awareness was rising very high. So leaving Africa Union, we were asked to do one thing, to take this flag across the continent and create awareness and talk to the citizens of the continent. And we have crafted a plan, and this is the plan that we have. We are expected to return this flag to AUC in January 2018, which gives us exactly 6 months to work out a plan, try and cover the 54 countries, and still be in Ethiopia when the heads of state sit to deliver the report and the flag. So what we think we are going to do is segment the continent into north, west, central, east, and southern or south, so that each of the countries that will be identified to be a player or to be the coordinator or the convener of the celebration or the awareness will be responsible for, in partnership with us, coordinating the countries in that region. We have opted to commence this thing in Benin. The celebration for West Africa will take place in Benin, purely because Benin is the first country that applied for the name or registered for .Africa name in the government reserved name list. So the celebration for West Africa will take place in Benin, a one-day awareness event. And then for North Africa, it will take place in Tunis, a one-day event again. So we'll mobilize all the North Africa countries to assemble, or country representatives to assemble in Tunisia. And then for Central Africa, we are going to have the celebrations in Congo, DRC. Again, we are going to ask, the Congo, government or the registrars in partnership with us, mobilize all the registrars and internet community members are in that region to assemble in Congo, DRC for this awareness and celebration. Then Southern Africa, the celebration will take place in Botswana, and similar, event and spirit will take place. We are going to use a similar program across the countries. No different program will be used for the different regions. And then starts an interesting thing. If we do get sponsorships, we will start driving from Botswana up to Tanzania. You see?
Which cars?
4x4s. You can join us. You can come and start driving with us from Botswana. So the driving will start in December, end of December, and commence, and on January, the beginning of the first week of January, we are going to have our East Africa celebration in Rwanda. And from Rwanda, then we drive across, which would take us a week in Tanzania, to Mount Kilimanjaro. So, So what are we going to do in Mount Kilimanjaro? We have what we call ambassadors. We have these former heads of state who want to appoint as our ambassadors. We'll have a huge awareness campaign at the base of the mountain. And those who are fit, I know yule dada anafikiri kwamba mimi sikuweza kupanda ile, but I will surprise you. Ndaweza. So now on that day, we are planning the 5 or 7 days to summit the mountain with the flag. So we'll go up with the flag to the top of the mountain. I know Abibu said he will be joining us. Mzee Kariba, you are joining us? Yeah? Yes, ma'am. So somewhere in August, we start the mobilization. I forgot that, the mobilization for the mountain climb. People who are interested for the mountain climb, we do the mobilization. You sign up so that we can do the preparation for fitness training. We don't know what is required for fitness. So yes, we don't want to have any casualties on the mountain. So we'll plan accordingly, and then we summit. Then coming down the mountain, the journey commences again, or continues, to Ethiopia with the flag. And finally, when the meeting of the heads of state convenes, we should be handing over that flag and the report and the whole delegation that would have driven those 4x4 vehicles from Botswana to Ethiopia. And hopefully those vehicles will then be donated to AUC to keep, and probably only one vehicle will be tested if it can still drive back to South Africa, and that would be one of those museum pieces. And throughout the journey, we need to be capturing the history for Africa. We are going to have your stills, we're going to have your visuals, still visuals, we're going to have your movies or recorded, to ensure that when we complete the journey, we can have a document that would depict and cover the history of our Africa journey across the continent. And part of that is also talking to the functions, the mandate that we have is to establish the Africa Foundation. We need also in each country to begin to develop a template that would assist in writing the history of their internet in each country. So by the time we complete the journey, we would have a dossier, which is an easy to populate document that will be talking to the history of when was the internet first used in Kenya, for example. Do you know, sir? Or which country you had internet for, for the first country to have internet on the continent. Again, this is a good quiz for us. Whoever would know that will get a free .Africa. Kenya? No? Not Kenya? No? No, not South Africa. Egypt. So these are the kinds of things that we need to be working upon, collating that kind of data, kind of information. And possibly if then when the heads of state sit again, we're going to have a nice document, both hard copy and soft copy, that can be available on the Africa Wiki page, and the marketing will continue for the .Africa name. So next, and which is the last slide that I have, just to demonstrate that something is already happening. It is alive, it's living. If you want to visit us, you can find us on www.registry.africa, or if you want to talk to me, you can find me on the lucky@registry.africa. Ali mentioned something about eating your dog food, so I'm eating my dog food. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we may want to invite questions before we lose anything from this presentation to Lucky. And I guess those questions are open, including to my panelists here, if there's something they also think they want to ask Lucky. This is the only panel that can also ask its panel members questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I think it was very well thought out. I was very fed. My question is, there is what I call the foreign brand syndrome. People, they would prefer to buy something which is made in US versus one that is made in Tanzania, although the quality may be the same. I have seen also this kind of culture also permeate the .tz, .za, whatever. So my question to you is, what plans do you have to be able to deal with this? I know it might be something which is rooted in our, in our culture, the way people have been brought, the competition between the cultures, the advanced cultures of the world, like the UK and the US. And you can see even today, when you speak of the hip-hop, the pop culture, that is where the future customers are for the Dot Africa. So my question is, how is Dot Africa going to be able to deal with this phenomenon? That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ntahigie, you may proceed.
My name is Taigie from AFNIC. Asante Bahati kwa wakilisho. That is, thanks Lucky for the presentation. First of all, I wanted to know where is the flag hanging at the moment? I know it has to be hanging somewhere, so where is it? And secondly, I have a proposal. From your presentation, it seems that we'll go with the flag to the mountain, to the top of Mountain Kilimanjaro, and it looks like we'll leave with it back to Addis. But I was proposing that we make two flags. We go with both at the top, we leave one, and we go with the remaining one back to Addis. That is the suggestion. Another issue is about joint marketing with the CCTLDs. During this process, we'll be like doing awareness together with the CCTLDs, where we'll be visiting. Is there any long-term plan for joint marketing of Dot Africa and the CCTLDs? And if there is, do you have any hints on it? Another issue I was quickly thinking, we have Dot Africa with the C. Are there any thoughts of Dot Africa with the K? I mean Dot Africa in English and Dot Africa in Swahili. The K is Dot Africa in Swahili, and the C is Dot Africa in English. That's my understanding. I might be creating confusion, but it's something to think of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer. I should have stopped you on number 3 so that you don't ask the 4th question. I'm not sure if Neil wants to ask a question, but I was next after Engineer here. So I happen to have a few questions for Lucky. And I think you portray maybe something that I want to imagine some registries could also emulate. You actually made every phase or every milestone you made, whether it was a setback or progress, kind of a marketing opportunity. So from when the court cases were going on, you used that to really market, even in anticipation. So is that something that you would recommend? Because I'm tying that to, if you look at the level of registrations in most of our registries, I think they're quite low. And because you also wear another hat of .za, and I want to believe there was a time when you are also having these low numbers. How did you overcome that you could maybe share with the audience from those two hats? That point, or that phenomenon that was the breakthrough moment for .za, for example, that has seen it sustain the kind of numbers we are seeing today. It is interesting because Dot Africa is starting from a clean slate, but even in less than 3 months, I'm sure we are already doing much better than a number of CCTLDs as was presented here. maybe there's something you can learn from this, because this has started from zero, and we're already doing some numbers. My question was whether, first of all, the reserve list from government is part of those numbers presented, especially during sunrise. And what do you see is the leading market that is taking Dot Africa at this point? Then I want to invite Neil and Ali, and then I'll close the questions to Lucky.
Thank you, Chair. We've mentioned earlier that Dot Africa is one of the important cornerstones of Dot Africa is development of CCTLDs in Africa. And we've also somewhere in the previous presentation mentioned that one of the challenges we face is the lack of ICANN accredited registrars in Africa. So maybe trying to kill two birds with one stone, ask the question, and I'm directing it more to the registry operators and the CCTLDs, whether there is an interest for CCTLDs to be somehow involved in the provisioning of Dot Africa domain names within their registry environments. They've got their own distribution channels, they've got resellers and registrars in their countries, they're dealing in their currency. Dot Africa, they have a stake in it whether they like it or not, because Dot Africa is a regional domain and it's there to benefit the CCTLDs. Is there a desire, a need, or a challenge for CCTLDs to become part of the provisioning channel of Dot Africa domains? And I'm sure if there is a need, we can find a solution. Thank you.
Il faut faire travailler les traducteurs. Sinon, ils vont partir. Hein. Oui. Ali Hadji, vice-président de l'AFTLD, je tenais à féliciter pour le démarrage de Point Africa parce que
to commend you for the launching of Dot Africa. It is all the continent or the majority of the African youth that supported this project. So AFTLD would like to thank you and to commend you for the launching of Dot Africa. The question about price harmonization is really interesting to me, and I think that AFTLD is going also to take that question into account. Because at the launching of the new program of JTLD, even in the discussion over the CCSO, there were some people who were expressing their fear because they were asking if the new GTLD is not going to destroy the CCTLD. I do not want the fact that the Dot Africa is created now, and I don't want to see the GTLD, the African GTLD, dying. That is why we are called FTLD, and you have to make effort and work for the success of our institutions and the success of the different African CCTLD. And the FTLD is reaffirming that we are going to work with you, so we have to look for ways and means which are going to make it possible for the different CTLC to evolve. Thank you.
I want to give Lucky 2.5 minutes to answer our questions, because he can indeed answer the others during dinner. Then I'll invite Moses to also share with us what they're doing with .ng. I'm sure we've been hearing from .ke, so he will be just making brief remarks, and in case there are questions that will be directed to .ke. That was for Kariba.
Thank you, sir. 2.5 minutes. By show of hands, the registrars in the room who are in a position, or rather, is there any interest from those CCTLD operators there who are interested in partnering with us, Africa, making it available. Show of hands, so that we can even, oh yes, I like this hand. So the question that Neil asked has been answered. There is an interest, and we should be starting very soon. My colleague with me here, Avi Singh, can also take your details, which will make information available, or when you visit that website that we have here. And then go into the questions on this foreign syndrome. It's a difficult thing, and I think all the registrars and registries that came up here to present have all equally, lamented on that. We have been testing why .com is still finding huge ground in Africa, and this is one of the things that we need to be doing. But fundamentally, what we need to be doing is we need to have our names trusted. They need to be trusted. People must trust our names. Our names need to have a good reputation. Our names must demonstrate resilience, with this robustness. And if we can do that, whether it's a name in South Africa or in Chad, it is certainly going to grow if we can provide those elements. And of course, price, we have spoken to it, extensively. For me, then we can be able to fight the foreign domain syndrome. For example, .com is selling for $9. Now, if you want to compete with .com on the continent, you need to start there on the pricing. And .com is seen as resilient, robust, trusted name. So we need to do that. We need to now create the brand names of our own names and be proud. I saw, .tz, they are very proud of their name. .ke have started embarking on another campaign of the second level domain names, which equally it invigorates the interest amongst the citizens. And then the flag. Yes, we need partnership, as many partners as possible. Our marketing plan will be rolling out throughout the life of the .Africa name. It will also be working very closely in ensuring these programs are realized in the .Africa Foundation. A lot of the work with the registrars and the CCTLDs, including the development of content, the Pan-African ICT program, will be done in the foundation. But money will be flowing from the proceeds. When you acquire a name, a percentage starts flowing into the foundation. If you look at those numbers that we have, we said there's 2,870 names today. Already there is money that is earmarked for the foundation, just from here what is happening. So if you increase this 2,000 further, and it makes, and you have another zero, if we can target to get 10% of what the study is telling us are the domain registrations in the country, 10% in the next 5 years minimum, and which is 400, there's 4.5 million, I think, but they were not certain of the number. But if we get 10% of that, we should be fine. We should get the foundation running easily. Where is the flag? The flag is in Midrand, getting ready to move to Benin. We're planning a trip somewhere in August. So I should have brought it here. In hindsight, when you were asking the question, I should have been flying here. And what we want to do for each, during the campaign, we are going to eventually hand out 54 flags. Each country will have a .Africa flag. We will keep the main flag that will go to the mountain, but during that awareness campaign, the date which we'll announce for Rwanda, we will announce for Benin, we will have flags that will be distributed across West Africa, a replica of the main flag. So this is what we are looking to do. And .Africa with a K, .Africa with a C, and AFNIC. And I like Africa with a K, that is in the next phase. Obviously, we do not have any concerns of the name being registered by any other party, because any name that has a resemblance or looks like Africa will go through scrutiny, and it will never be made available to any other party. So I think the next phase will then apply for AFNIC, and .africa with a K, and any other variant, where that resembles .africa. And supporting, I think our success in this name, campaign, running 2 companies, Registry Africa, because this project .africa is not run under ZACR. It is run by a different company called Registry Africa. So I must say this success has been the corporates, because we have over the years demonstrated that it's a trustworthy name .za, and they've held on to it. The stats were showing you that it's growing between 5 and 6% per annum. Even though we do very little marketing for the .za namespace, but it has just this natural growth, It's amazing, we don't do as much, we haven't done as much marketing as we do for .africa. I must thank the team, our back-end providers, making sure that we build this resilient, trusted network. I always touch wood that we have never been hacked, and I'm not praying for that to happen, but there is all this cyber, attacks all around us, and our team has been able to, to ward off these attacks. And those are the important players in this regard, where your DNS Africa or DNS Services South Africa. And of course, I think I have a supportive board. My board, allows us to do what they think is best. And our plans are almost always endorsed and supported. So those are the 3 entities that are important. It is the corporates, which some of you are part of the corporate citizens, your DNS, and the board that I serve under. And then in the next 30 seconds, yes, thanks to the chair, deputy chair of AFTLD. Look, we knew when we entered into an MOU with AFTLD that we are entering into a partnership with a relevant party and the continent. And we need to make sure that whatever, has been done or agreed, signed in that MOU is translated, which I believe it is, translated into this .Africa Foundation governance document framework. So the support that you are talking to, that you are going to be providing to us in our campaign, we are truly touched and elated, and I think it's only what we would expect of AFTLD, and if not, the AF Stars, broadly, and any other entity that is not part of the AF Star group to give us the support. And 2.5 minutes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Moses?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Moses from .ng. Let me quickly run to what we do and in .ng, and we presently have about 95,000 domains, and we have a premium name, we have a reserve name, we have a domain on 2nd level, we have domain on the 3rd level. The domain on the premium is about $4,500. We have about second level domain, about $30, and our 3rd level domain like .com.ng, .org.ng is less than $5. So and all our 2 letters word, we've already reserved them, so we are not sending them. We are not sending our 2 letters word, but if anybody come up or any organization come up with a trademark, we will sell it at the premium price. So that's what we do about the domain. And also we have a schedule that will be circulated to all our registrars, that when we get to this to this level, when we get to 100,000, when we have 100,000 domain, we are going to reduce price to this the percentage of reduction. We've already have the schedule, and we circulated it when we get to 500,000, when we are in 1 million, when we are in 10 million, we've already circulated it. And another thing that we do, because we operate on 3R model, and we don't leave the work of marketing with our registrar or the registrar. So we also involve in the marketing, and also we do some competition among the registrar. So sometimes we can give our registrar target that if you can register the domain of 1,000 within a month, we're going to give you 30% of the money you pay for the domain. And if they meet up with the target, we credit the account back with the 30% of the money they pay for the registration of the thousands of the domain. And there is a lot of the other things that we do. We engage a lot of people, like the young people, the students in university, college of education, and the polytechnics. We have a brand ambassador there. So we pick some students. We call them the .ng brand ambassador. So they are the ones that do the publicity, marketing of .ng in their school, telling the students about the .ng domain, especially the students in the computer science department and information technology. So, and if they are doing the yearly things, they call it maybe association of computer science, maybe a yearly or national association of computer science. We go there, we give them T-shirts, and we support them, and by doing that, we trying to market our home products. You know, before now, you know, many people knows the .ng to be Nira. So the name Nira is more popular than the domain name. So immediately we realize the name that people hear about Nira. They don't even know what we do. So we have to just change it. So we project .ng more than the name of the association Nira. So there is a lot of things also we do. We branding of big boss, we call them a BRT boss in Lagos, so we brand them with our .ng. Also, we have a billboard that we put our brand. Then we have in the airport and the major road in Lagos, in Abuja, and major city in Nigeria. Also, we do a lot of marketing with the corporate body. That the other time I was suggesting about the breakfast meeting. We do a breakfast meeting with the corporate body, because some banks and the corporate organization, they don't know about the .ng. They are comfortable with .com. So we hold the meeting with them. We organize a meeting, schedule meeting with them. We write them and tell them about .ng. Some of them has how can they go about it, and we tell them how to switch to .ng, they can redirect with some times, and they can now shut down the .com, and they can also use the two together at the same time. So and another thing is that we also try to change people mentality about it must be .com. people prefer foreign things that .com, you know, they just want people to know that they are on .com. So because of that, we organize a program. We call it a switch to .ng. So if you are on .org, .net, .com, so we train them how they can change to .ng. And another thing we also do, the performance. The performance bonus, we try as much as possible. We take care of our staff, you know. By doing that, you know, all our staff, both we have about the 5 departments. We have a technical, legal, accounts, business, and admin department. So there is no department, the staff of .ng that doesn't know what we are doing. All of them know. Even if you go to account section, they know about .ng. They can tell people outside that this is what the .ng, the price of .ng. Though the price that we are sending to registrar, we don't publicize it because it's between us and the registrar. So, but the price of the end user, we just try to tell them that it's as cheap as 1,000 naira. It's as cheap as 1,000 naira. So we don't know, we don't control price. That's what we tell people. We don't control price, but we sure that when you go online and try to register, you can get it as cheaper as 1,000 naira. So there is a lot of things that we do, and also the government, you know. We have the government official among our BOT member because we have a board of trustee, we have a board of directors. So all the registration that, all the domain that the government use, we allow them to register free of charge, and also they renew free of charge. So we don't collect money for the government, and by doing that, the government they pass a bill that every government official must use .gov.ng for their email. For email they want to send, either for the outside, send outside, or within the government parastatal. So those are the things that we've been doing in .ng. And the volume of the last year I was in Dakar, then in Senegal, that time we have about our domain was 75,000 domain, and between that time to this time now, so we are in 95,000. So we have 20,000 increments. So, and the renewal rate is about more than 90% that the people that are renew the domain. So I think that's what I have to say. So if anybody wants to ask questions, so I'm ready to answer.
Thank you very much, Moses. You indicated that you noted that people knew NIRA more than .ng. I am sure most of us are in that category. I'm not sure if kenic is different. Maybe Kariba, you want to have a few comments on the same. Lucky has to remind us every time that it is indeed registry.africa that is the organization. So we know .africa and not the organization. I think that's a different position. So.
I don't know what else to add. For us, people know KE because we've pushed KE a lot. They only want to find out who runs .ke when they have a problem from a registrar, but that's changed over time. I didn't have anything else to add. I think I exhausted a lot of my presentation. Maybe what I can do is take questions from the KE presentation, if there are any. If not, the rest can be discussions at dinner.
Okay, so I'll invite the last set of questions from the floor, and then I'll ask my panelists to make closing remarks and answer any of those questions as they close.
Taigia from TISNIC. I have a quick one in terms of competition, registrar competition. It's a very good aspect so that they perform. But in the end, you need to monitor it and control it. And from Nigeria's experience, it was presented that whoever reaches a certain number of registrations, there is a commission of 30%, right? If I got it well. Well, there is some advantage in terms of finance to the performing registrar. Now, you know, when there is competition, some might register dummy or forced registrations just to meet the target and be the winner. And in the end, we realize it after a year. How do you control it? One might register funny domains to reach the target, and you applaud him and give him commission. But after 1 year, you end up having maybe like 80% or 90% of deletions from that particular registrar who performed during that particular time.
We actually used to have that in .ke, where the cap was 2,000 domains. So after 2,000 domains, the price the registry charges you would drop. So when we changed to an RRP model, the first thing you saw, I think in one of my charts, you saw one that actually where the registrations were less than the deletions. That spike was because of that. So, I mean, I'd love to hear from Nigeria, if they've done it like over a 3-year period, what the experience has been like.
Yeah, the competition, you know, we did it some years back. We are no longer doing it, but then, you know, it's all about investment. You know, it's not registrar that actually register. They are registering the domain for the end user, for their registrant. So I don't believe that because of what to meet target, because then the target was 1,000 domain. So for a registrar, because you want the 30% of your registration, and you go and register thousands of domains, I don't think it's possible. But what we do now is that the top 3 registrar that we are doing presently now, the top 3 registrar, we try to at least take them to ICANN meeting. We pay for their traveling allowance and everything. That's what we do now. So it's just top 3 registrar for the for the quarter. We do it quarterly. So top 3 registrar, we go to ICANN or maybe DNS forum like this. So that's what we do. But I don't think it's possible for a registrar to go and put his money because he needs 30% from me.
I think what I'm hearing is a sense of having kind of a reward system, and the details of it could be or could differ from market to market, but looks like it works in some markets to have kind of a reward system for registrars, and that reward differ and could be defined from market to market. Maybe I think you could share more as registries how that has worked for those registries that have implemented a reward system for their registrars. I think other than that, I would ask Lucky to not to ask a question, but to also make his final remarks and to answer any outstanding question this evening.
Thank you, Chair. If I may ask this question on, I know .ke is now embarking on a second level Sunrise, and I would like to know, what triggered them to open up the space, and was it a survey, was it demand from the general population, the users? or is it something that was influenced by other factors? So in your closing remarks, probably if you can cover that second level campaign, which currently is in a sunrise phase. And then for me, really, it's to say .Africa is live. We need to now exercise that other choice that we have. You have .TZ and you have .Africa. You have .KE and you have .Africa. You are spoiled for choices. You do not need now to use other domain names which are not necessarily within your jurisdiction. So that's what it is. And keep supporting your local CCTLDs. Make sure that that in turn will give a lot of impetus to the .Africa project. And we thank you again for those entities that are ready to partner with us on this journey for .Africa. Thank you. And for the governments that have not yet completed their government reserve name list, we urge you to complete that, because that is very critical. We see some government have at least more than 100 names in the GRNL, and others are struggling to get to 100.
He's saying the deadline.
The deadline is long gone.
So we are a nation of deadlines. So
it's moving.
With that, I want to thank my panelists and, of course, the participants for your time. I am sure the next session is, we can't wait for the next session, isn't it? And we might want to maybe drop our ties. How many have ties today? I am not one of them. Thank you very much. I think we can engage any of the team members in the evening. Otherwise, I will invite a round of applause for the panel. And Abibu to give us details of the next session, please.
Well, the plan is to leave the hotel, Serena Hotel, at 6. So for those who are staying closer to Serena, you can drop your bags and change your neckties and make sure that you are back here at around 6. The buses will be at Serena a few minutes ago, but we will leave past 6. We are going for chakula cha jioni. Yeah. Leo. Kesho tunaanza saa 3.